I can see that we have present Councillors Buchanan, Dewar, Councillor Equi. I'm not seeing you present. Also present today is Councillor Ferguson. I have apologies from Councillor Gowland, and I can see that Councillor Kerr has joined as a substitute. Councillor Keat. I'm not seeing you present. Also present today are Councillors Lockhart, Mars and Nugent. We have some council officers present today, and with that, I'll hand back to yourself, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Okay, if we go on to item number 1, which is declarations of interest, are there any? No, we don't seem to have any. Okay, moving on to item number 2. That's the minutes of previous meeting, pages 3 to 6. And if we can have those minutes agreed, please.
Agreed, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Mars. Okay, next item is item 3A, and that's the capital budget monitoring 2025 to 2026. The General Fund Capital Programme, pages 7 to 26. And if I could ask Graham Booth, I think it's Graham, is it, Amy, to take us through it, please?
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. Item 3 is the usual update in terms of the General Fund Capital Programme, and that covers the progress to the 5th of September 2025. At section 4, 4.1 on page 7, we're noting the revised capital programme for the year of 68.986 million, and this includes adjustments to the programme totaling a net decrease of 946,000, and they're detailed in Appendix A that I'll come on to in a little bit more detail shortly, and they were approved by the Executive Committee on the 5th of November. At section 4.2, we're given an update just in a project that's been brought into the programme for the headquarters heating upgrade. And just some information there just in terms of the age of the building and the equipment and the urgent condition of the boilers, that the works for the installation of the new energy efficient steam central heating system. And the cost of the project is estimated at £1.5 million, with 150,000 of this required this financial year, which will be funded from within the existing capital budget, and the remaining budget required in next year's capital programme, and that will be brought into the 26-27 programme with the further use of the prioritised urgent investment fund budget. So overall, in terms of the funding available, also 68.986 million, and we're forecasting at 4.4. We're forecasting full spend against that this financial year. In terms of the actual position to the 5th of December, we've got spend of 13.5 million and actual funding received of 14.2 million. And again, relevant officers will continue to closely monitor the income in terms of all the receipts this financial year. If I move on to Appendix A on page 10, as I say, this has details of the adjustments in terms of the approved exceptions this period. The first one is in relation to Project Clydesdale Way, and again, just in terms of the timescales of that, and it being a multi-partner project, the profile of spends changed slightly, so then we're transferring some of the funding from this financial year into next financial year to reflect the payments for that. Similarly with the renewal of play parks, we have our overall programme of play parks, the East Kilbride area as it's currently been undertaken at the moment. But again, just due to the timing in terms of when that work will be delivered by some of the contractors, we're moving some of that money into next financial year. For the White Bridge replacement, we have funding that was in the capital programme already, and this was also supplemented by the investment funding this year. And that investment funding is being spent on the design and feasibility works at the moment. But in terms of the budget, again, that was there from previously, that's moving into next financial year along with the remainder of the investment monies overall for the project. So again, it's just in terms of the stage of where that programme is at the moment, a design with the full budget in future years for the works. And lastly, just at the bottom of page 10, again, is some slippage in relation to our Overtown bandstand. Again, the construction works anticipated to commence early next year, and it will be complete by June, in line with the Rutherglen celebrations. And also, we're moving that money into next financial year to reflect that. On page 11, again, just have some more in relation to housing and technical resources. We're bringing in a project at North Halfway Hall for refurbishment works that will be funded by developer contributions. Again, there'll be sort of split of that, how that funding is allocated over the next couple of financial years. And then we have the headquarters heating project that we've mentioned in the body of the report, and the £1.5 million overall, with 150,000 of that this financial year. And lastly, we have the upgrade of the council website. Again, looking to bring that into the programme for 150,000, and that work will also include, as part of that, it will include accessibility in terms of the council's website, and ensuring we're conforming to all standards there. So the total adjustments, as I say, is moving 946,000 just out into next financial year. Appendix B just has the usual breakdown just in terms of those adjustments and how that looks across the resources, coming back to the overall programme of just under 69 million. And Appendix C as well has the breakdown, just further breakdown of that across all the services across the council. And Appendix D on page 14 has our funding makeup of the 69 million, with the majority of that in terms of coming from the capital grant and the approved borrowing, but a number of other funding sources as well, as I say, that we're continuing to watch the actual income, monitor the actual income coming against that this year. And that takes me to Appendix E on page 15 in terms of the build update that Amy will take us through next. Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. We can move on to Amy. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Chair. So this takes me on to my point in page 15, Appendix E, where there is currently one project behind programme. This relates to the works getting carried out at South Benno roof replacement at phase 2. The explanation for the works being behind is there's been a bit of a delay in getting lead-in times for materials, so we had skylights that needed to be ordered, and there was a significant delay. So that's the reason. That's the only one that we have behind programme this period. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Amy. Do you have any questions? Don't seem to have any questions. So can we agree the report, please?
Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Murs. And moving on to item 3B, and that's the Capital Budget Monitoring 2025 to 2026 Housing Capital Programme, pages 27 to 32. And if we can hand back to you, Graham, to take us through the report.
Thank you, Chair. Item 3B is the update on the Housing Capital Programme for the same period to the 5th of September. And again, it's section 4 on page 27. We're noting the revised Housing Capital Programme for the year of 87.670 million, and the funding is the same, just in terms of the detailed funding breakdown of the funding sources of 87.670 is noted in Appendix A. In terms of the current forecast, the predicted spend for the year is for full budget for the 87.670 million, and the spend to the 5th of September amounts to 27.5 million. If I then take you down to Appendix A, you can again see just the overall budget of the 87.670 and how that's funded this year in terms of across the revenue contribution, the borrowing, and also the grant that we get from the Scottish Government for the new builds, making that up. And again, the actual funding to date received in line with the spend of 27.5 million. And at this point as well, if I take into Appendix B on page 30, and Amy can take it through in terms of any updates in terms of the status of projects. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Graham.
6B, page 30. I currently have one project behind programme and 5 projects with altered brief, with 20 projects being held. The one project which is behind programme is the Tory Glen Road window and door replacement project, and this project is delayed due to supplier issues. Just in terms of getting materials, again, seems to be a common theme. So thank you, the Chair.
It does. Thank you, Amy. Okay, do we have any questions? Okay, if we don't have any questions, can we agree the report, please? Thank you, Councillor Summers. Okay, moving on to item number 4. That's the Revenue Budget Monitoring 2025 to 2026, pages 33 to 38. And again, Graham, please.
Thank you, Chair. Item 4 on page 33 is the revenue update for the General Fund programme, and again covers the same period to the 5th of September. At section 4, we're noting the position of a break-even position overall for general services as at the 5th of September, and the actual spend is shown in Appendix 1, which again can come on to shortly. From section 4.3 onwards, we're just giving an update on a number of the key budget areas that we've been tracking through the forum over the course of the financial year. So the first is in relation to teacher numbers and reduced class contact time. So again, back in August, we had given an update that there was no longer a need to restore the teacher numbers to the higher level, and there was an underspend therefore in 25-26 that we would transfer to reserve to support the budget strategy. There is still a risk in relation to the reducing class contact time for teachers, with national discussions on this ongoing, because there will be financial implications for councils, including South Lanarkshire. So COSLA and the local government are engaged with the Scottish Government on the matter, and the local government have made it clear that any funding would have to be provided. So if the Scottish Government didn't fully fund the cost of the reduced class contact time, then savings the council has to make would be higher in terms of it would be if the funding's provided. So again, we'll continue to update as that matter progresses, but at the moment, as I say, discussions are still ongoing. At 4.5 as well, again, at the time of writing, we're noting about the pay awards and the teachers in terms of rejecting the previous offer, and that discussions were ongoing around that. So again, there's been kind of recent discussions on that in terms of an updated offer, and we'll continue to keep the forum aware of any emerging information around that once full agreement is reached and the financial implications across all the employee groups. And at 4.6 onwards through to 4.10, we're given an update just on the PEPR, the Packaged Extended Producer Responsibility funding that again we had reported back in August, and we had the confirmation of the 7.7 million from DEFRA for 25-26, and the proposals in place around that of just over 600,000, and that the remaining funding of circa 7 million. That would be release core council budget, with then decisions to be made on that at the executive committee. So again, at 4.8, we were noting at that August paper that there was no certainty of funding beyond 25-26, and that clarity would be sought in relation to the paper funding. So a letter was sent to the government, and we were seeking to provide assurance and stability just around our financial planning for that. We received a response advising that it is intended that the PEPR funding will in future years replace equivalent funding in the local government settlement. And the response went on to say that, well, it didn't reduce the reflect payments for 25-26. 26 and 27 will be a matter as part of the Scottish budget and spending review. So budget engagement is planned now between Scottish Government and COSLA for being the appropriate forum for those future discussions, and the Council will participate in these discussions through COSLA as appropriate, and again we'll continue to up members in relation to that area. In terms of the loan charges and within our budget, and again I can highlight that in a minute when we get onto the appendix, we have our loan charges budget there to reflect the impact of borrowing levels and interest rates forecasts. And again, we're working through that just now, and that will be reported to a future meeting of the Exec Committee in this forum, aligned with our probable outturn exercise, just in terms of how that looks alongside the budget. And then we have, as I say, our housing revenue account position at Section 5 and Appendix 2 in terms of also reporting a break-even position. So within Appendix 1 on page 37, you can see overall we're reporting a break-even position, and there is, just in terms of a timing, in terms of the year-to-date actual, noting a net surplus, but overall, as I say, we're forecasting an outturn, and there is some lines there in terms of, at the bottom of the page, just that we've been referencing there in terms of the loan charges, the teacher numbers, transfer to reserves, that again will be, in terms of the loan charges, we'll have an update for a future meeting in terms of when that's work's been concluded. And Appendix 2 for the housing revenue account, again, we're showing an overall break-even position there with a slightly less transfer to reserves than had budgeted, and there's a note in an underspend there in an employee cost just due to some of the vacancies that we're holding within the service. That's all in relation to that report, Chair, and as I say, would be looking for everyone just to note the details of the report in terms of the break-even position for the general fund and also the housing revenue account. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Graham. Do you have any questions? Nope. Okay. If we can agree that report, please. Thank you, Councillor Marson. Moving on to item number 5. That's the Revenue Budget Monitoring 2025-2026, the detailed resource analysis, pages 39 to 86. Once again, Graham, I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you, Chair. Again, I'll just go through the detailed resource analysis as normal for the period, and again, just kind of stop after every resource just to, if there's any particular questions on any of the resources. First resource norm is Community and Enterprise, Appendix A on page 41, and we're noting the overall break-even position forecast for the resource, but there are some underspends with facilities, waste and grounds and environmental services offsetting an overspend within roads, and overall year-to-date actual showing just of under 43 million. The variance analysis is on from page 42 onwards, and again, as normal, we are underlining any new variances from last time. And then the detail in terms of the financials and the trend analysis for the expenditure and income is from page 50 onwards through to page 52. So again, happy to take any questions in relation to Community and Enterprise Resources, Chair.
Nothing from me. Has anybody got any questions? Oh, okay, happy to move on, please, Kieran.
Thank you, Chair. The next resource is Education Resources on page 53. Again, noting an overall break-even position for the year against the annual budget and year-to-date actual of just under 194 million. The variance explanations are on page 54 through to 56, and the detailed expenditure and income analysis is from page 57 through to page 59. And again, happy to take any questions in relation to Education Resources.
Thanks, Graham. Nothing from me. Does anybody else have any questions? Well, okay, happy to move on.
Thank you, Chair. Appendix C. Next is Finance and Corporate Resources on page 61. Again, showing an overall break-even position for the resource, but we do have some underspends within our finance transaction services, offsetting an overspend within IT. And for information as well, in terms of the year-to-date actual, showing just under 27 million. In terms of IT, just to mention specifically, the spend does appear high there compared to the budget and outturn, but that is because we've got some recharging that's coming through in terms of next period, just that will bring that back more in line with the budget. So it's just a case of the income catching up. The variance explanations are on page 62 and 63, and the detailed expenditure and income and trends analysis is on from page 64 on through to page 65. So again, happy to take any questions in relation to finance and corporate resources. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Graham. No, nothing from me. Does anybody else have any questions? Not seeing anything. Okay, we'll move on next. Please, Graham.
Thank you. The next resource is Housing and Technical Resources, Appendix D, page 67. Again, showing a break-even position overall with an underspend in property services offsetting the minor overspend in the housing services, and the year-to-date actual of just shy of 15.5 million. The variance explanations are on page 68 through to page 70. And again, just picking up on a question from last time, Chair, we had asked a question just on the overspend in relation to our security costs and the CCTV in particular. So I agreed that I would kind of give a fuller explanation next time, and that's in relation to some of the connectivity costs in relation to that. To the CCTV security, so it's not in relation to any particular property, it's just some of the lines around that, and again that is going to be in terms of we're doing something around our procurement review on that and the contracts in place, so that will be a future efficiency that hopefully say brings that budget back in line, brings the spend back in line with the budget. The expenditure and income analysis is on page 71 and through to 73. And then in terms of the HRA explanations for housing and tech, they are in Appendix E on page 75, again with the detailed expenditure and income analysis on page 70 through to page 77. So again, happy to take any questions in relation to housing and tech, either the general services or HRA, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Graham. Does anybody else have anything? No questions? Okay, we'll move on, please.
Lastly, social work resources on page 79, Appendix F, and again an overall break-even position for the resource, but it underspends in justice and performance and support, offsetting an overspend within children and families. And again, the year-to-date actual shown there just under 118 million to this period. The explanations are on page 80 through to 83, and again anything new is underlined from the last report. And we have our expenditure and income trend analysis on the last pages from 84 through to 86. And again, if there's any questions in social work, Chair, happy to take those now. Thanks.
Thank you for that, Graham. Does anybody have any questions for the last part? No. Okay, good. So can we agree the entirety of that report? Thank you, Councillor Mars. And last but item number 6, we've had no intimations of any urgent business. So I'd like to thank everybody's attendance to today's meeting and for the closing meeting. Thank you.